Yeah. All I need is one mic. Yeah. All I need is one mic.
Hey everybody, welcome back to One Mic, where I watch shit so you don't have to. And today I'm here to talk about season 3, episode 5 of HBO Succession, entitled Retired Janitors of Idaho. The title refers to a line that Roman uses fairly early in the episode. He's referring to the shareholder vote. And he says if we go to a vote, basically we're leaving the company in the hands of the retired janitors of Idaho. And I like that line because it to me shows how much disdain, but also, I guess, ignorance that Roman has toward anyone who's not even people who are poor or regular people or people who are just not well off. Like his disdain and ignorance referring to people who are just less rich than he is. Like, these are shareholders. These are not people that Roman should be looking down on. Yet in his mind, if you are not elite level like he is, or his family, or someone who can help him out, or help preserve his power, someone who he can use, if you're not someone on that kind of level, then you're everybody else, and you might as well just be a rural janitor in Idaho. And it's so dismissive, and it's like you get times where you want to like Roman because he's funny. You could tell that he like really cares about his dad, even though his dad treats him like shit, and that's kind of sad, and you want to feel bad for him. But then you hear him say shit like that, or the thing that he did with the $1 million with the kid in the first episode. All that kind of shit. It just reminds you that Roman really is, at the end of the day, a complete piece of shit. And I think that it's a good title for the episode because, everything here, this whole episode is about the shareholder meeting. Everything here revolves around it. And it shows you how Roman feels about these people, even though these are people who are important to his goals. And he still thinks so little of them, that they're rural janitors in Idaho. I don't know. It's a good episode title, as they always do with this show. But I thought this was another great episode. What I loved about this episode, and I'm gonna compare it to, I believe it was season 1, episode 6, the one that had the no confidence vote for Logan. And what I like about this episode and that episode is that they both do a great job of taking a concept or something that we as the viewer may look at as something that would be boring, or how could this be interesting. Like if you pulled somebody to the side and said, hey, there's an incredible episode of Succession in season 3 where there's a shareholder meeting and they got to figure out who's going to be in charge and if they can make a deal. Like what kind of show is this? This sounds really fucking boring. But this show manages to find a way to not only take something that's not that interesting of a concept on paper, and not just make it interesting, but make it like exhilarating. Like both of those episodes, I kind of left out of it like, whew, okay, that was intense. And the way that this show manages to take something that for us regular folks who don't have a peek behind the curtain like we do with this show, that to take these concepts and these things that are important into the everyday lives of the uber rich and uber powerful, but are just completely just off of our radar, and find a way to accurately convey the tension that they were going through, the stress, the worry, all of that comes through the screen so well on this show. And I think that's because of not just how well it's written, but how it's shot. Like, it feels very rushed. It feels very compact. It feels very like segregated from the rest of the world. Like you feel like they're off in this back room. And that's something that's I think scary, I think, to us regular folks, that there can be a handful of people in a back room making decisions that affect all of us. And we see that throughout this episode, not just with the haggling between Sandy and Stewie's group and the Roys, but we also see it with how they deal with the president. So I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. But great episode, and that's part of why I love this show. So I'm going to talk about a few of the things that I liked. I didn't have anything I didn't like. I really never do with this show. And then I have a couple of thoughts at the end that I want to talk about as well. So let's see. Where's the first thing I wanted to start with? I like that they... Well, let me see. Do I want to start there? So when I talked about the tension and how they do a great job of relaying that, I like how they found a way to give the tension on a larger scale with what happened with Logan and whether or not he, his decisions that he seems to be relaying to the rest of the team are coming from his right mind. There's a lot of tension there. Like, what do we do? Do we do what he says? Do we assume he knows what he's doing? He's not telling us. Is this a long play? Like, is this a long game or whatever? Or is he completely off his fucking rocker and we got to do our own thing? I like that. That's like, to me, like the big tension, right, of the episode. But I even like how they gave us even like minor tension in other scenes, like the idea of Frank or Jerry having to just stand up in front of all of these shareholders and just like bullshit for an indeterminate amount of time. Like, that's stressful. I've done public speaking more times than I can count, for various sized crowds. None as large as this shareholder meeting. Well, I don't know how many people were at the shareholder meeting, but I've done public speaking in front of 100, 200 people, something like that plus, right? And these are kind of things that you prepare for. You kind of know what you're going to say. You're either comfortable doing it or you're not. I generally am more comfortable doing it. It's not a big deal for me. I can handle it. But even as someone like me who's done it a lot and is fairly comfortable with it, the idea of like kind of just trying to draw out time and then twice have people come up to you and like, hey, take a little bit longer, fam. We ain't ready yet. And you just got to just keep going. Like, even that is tenseful. So like, I don't know. I really liked how even when we thought that's probably why this episode felt so exhilarating and tense, is the fact that you don't even get a break from the tension of the main storyline. They take you to something else, like them talking at the shareholders meeting, and even that is something that's relatable, that we can be like, oh man, that's got to be nerve-wracking to have to just stand up there and just continue bullshitting for however long. So I like how they managed that in this episode. I also like how they set the table for Logan having his issues or whatever, right? The idea of the whole thing with him having to pee, they set that up from the very first scene of the episode. It happens again where he just kind of, I think in the conversation with Connor, where Connor asked for the, I think he said a high-ranking position in Europe on cable, something like that. He says he has to pee again, and then they had a third time, I think maybe just prior to his conversation with Connor, where he mentions having to pee, and then I think it was Carolina said something like, yeah, you got to go down the hall, up the stairs, all this kind of shit. And he said something like, actually, I think that's the same scene. It is the same. That's the scene with Connor, actually, yeah. Because Carolina was the only other person there when they had that conversation. And, they built it up. I'm like, man, he's got to pee a lot. He hasn't been going. What's going on here? So they set that up really well with him going off the first time, coming back to make the decision that he made, going off the second time, and then like completely, losing his shit. He's yelling in the bathroom, all that stuff, coming back, the cat under the chair, all that kind of stuff. So I love that they found a way to plant these seeds prior to build up to these big moments, right? And the big moment, I think, for us in this episode, as far as the shareholder meeting goes, is when he comes out the second time and comes out of the bathroom, and everybody's realizing now that he's completely off his shit. We got like I said, the dead cat under the chair. He's calling everybody by the wrong name, and the audience and the other Roy family members are now making the connection, like, holy shit, did we just blow this when he's clearly not with it based on what he said? And then we're all thinking back to the first conversation after he came out of the bathroom. They're like, what do we do here? He says, fuck him. Shiv calls woman Sandy and is like, yo, the deal's off. We're not giving on the private jets. And as a viewer at that time, I'm looking like, okay, Logan clearly does not quite seem all there, but you couldn't really tell for sure. So then when he comes out the second time, it's not just, oh shit, Logan is completely out of it. It's like, well, how long has he been completely out of it? Is it when he said fuck him to this deal? Was he out of it then? They even bring it up. Was he out of it when he quote unquote agreed to Connor's demands? So really great stuff there. I thought that was a really good way to ratchet up the tension there. But I do want to give a little bit of time to kind of like explaining what happened with this vote. I think this was one of the more straightforward episodes. Like, there's not too many things that happen beneath the surface or in between the lines, but I do want to go over it a little bit just in case. So the whole time you have the Sandys and Stewie, their group. You have Kendall kind of operating with them a little bit as well, but mainly they're negotiating with the Roys, Jerry, Carl, Frank, all of them. And I think, and before I actually even fully go into it, at the very beginning of the episode, everyone's talking about, the importance of the negotiations because they don't want to go to a vote. Jerry and Carl come back from having met with Stewie and Sandy off camera. Stewie and the Sandys off camera, and they basically say, like they wanted, I think Jerry said they wanted the moon on a stick, like they wanted everything, and Carl says something like, they wanted 4 board seats, and all we get is corn and something else, I don't know, some weird phrase, right? And then by the end of the episode, Carl is like, 4 seats, I can't wait to say yes to this. Like, so like, I just love how the events of the episode play out to where at the beginning of the episode, what was laughable and not even on the table becomes encouraging just based off of everything that happened with Logan. But they're negotiating. We open up with the whole idea of them getting 3 seats versus 4 seats. Stewie shows up at some point. He kind of says, okay, well, actually, no, he doesn't show up. They meet with all of them. So Stewie and both Sandys meet with, let's see, who did Logan send? He sent Shiv, Roman, Jerry, Frank, and I think Carl, maybe not Frank, Carl, to go meet with them. And they essentially say, okay, they iron out what seems to be a good deal. And then they add on this thing about, well, not they, Sandy adds on, supposedly, which is another thing I liked, I'll get to that in a moment, that he wants a veto on any Roy becoming CEO. And that's the thing that kills the deal for the Roys. They can't agree to that. And Roman makes a point that I thought was interesting, and I like when he does this, when he kind of like alerts everyone to the elephant in the room, and he essentially asks, like, how do we know that this is Sandy actually making this request and not woman Sandy and Stewie pretending like he is because he can't speak for himself. That's what he meant. He says, how do we know he's not your meat puppet? But that's what he meant. And I thought that was a really interesting question to raise in that moment that no one really addressed, but I felt it kind of loomed over the rest of the negotiations from that point on. I was wondering the entire time, whenever woman Sandy, I think man Sandy is spelled with a Y, and woman Sandy is spelled with an I, and I don't feel good saying man Sandy and woman Sandy, so I'm just gonna say Sandy with a Y to refer to the man, and Sandy with an I to refer to the woman. So there we go, going forward. Cool. I don't have to feel weird about these phrases. Whenever Sandy with an I would refer to Sandy with a Y's request, in the back of my head, after Roman said that, I wondered every time, is she making a play for herself, or is she truly speaking on behalf of Sandy with a Y? So that was a great moment as well. But they that seems to be the breaking point. They come back and they're like, no, we're not going to do that. But then they get to a point where it sounds like they've kind of ironed it out. To me, it sounded like a no. I think Sandy with an I said something to the effect of, we're going to talk it out, but it would be a shame. And she said it would be a shame if you mess this up over a detail. To me, that sounded like she was putting it on them for not accepting the veto thing on the CEO part. And then they say, I think we see where we're going to be landing here, so we can let the lawyers hash it out. And Shiv takes that as a yes. I was taking that as a huge question mark. But they kind of go back and report it as like, okay, we got a deal. We just got to iron some stuff out. It's not official, but, the lawyers will get at it and we'll be smooth. Everything's cool. Then Sandy with an I calls back, and we find out that they also want to get rid of the private jets because they're elitist and out of touch. And I love that Roman goes, duh, but no. I thought that was a great line. But they continue to ask for more, and it does feel like it's something that's meant to make Logan look bad. Not like you don't actually need these things. These aren't important in negotiations. Really, like, do the private jets really matter? But it's a thing where it's like, I feel like I have Logan on his heels. Let me send a 1-2 to the body and just kind of keep going and see what we can do. And I like the fact that Roman didn't want to back down on that. And I think Logan didn't either. And I think it was more on general principle, not about like, oh, we love our private jets, but like they're pushing it to see how far they can go. And everyone else was kind of willing to lie down. But that's what makes this show so interesting, is that you can look at both sides and you can see both sides. Or maybe you're watching with somebody who agrees with the other side. And having the family kind of be at odds in ways that we can both relate to and understand, and we can take sides with, and it helps us feel more involved in the show. So I really loved everything that was the A plot here, and I thought they pulled it off to perfection. It was incredibly interesting the entire time. Let's see. Another thing that I liked is that when Kendall shows up fairly late in the episode, they're all worried about what's happening with Logan. The cat thing is in the process of being dealt with. And Kendall shows up and they really have it out. And Kendall's like, you guys are fucking this up. You're ruining this. Figure it out. And they're like, get out of here. Get out of here. And the venom that comes, especially from Roman toward Kendall on behalf of Logan, felt very real to me. I felt like Kieran Culkin did a great job in that scene because we know how much he cares for Logan despite having every reason not to. And he still takes it very, I don't want to say personally, but seriously, the idea that Kendall has done things that have put Logan in danger. And he said something like, you probably set him up, you Putin, or something like that. Like, he's so fucking pissed. And that's so on brand for Roman, to where he can lash out at Kendall like that just because he's so stressed out over the condition of his father. Like, Shiv's continuing to try to, can we get him on stage? Can we do this? And Roman keeps going, we have to look out for him. We have to take care of him. Like, what are you talking about? He goes into son mode, taking care of his father, and Shiv continues to be on business mode. And it's just the difference between the kids. But I like that the show is consistent with that. Let's see. Another scene I liked. Greg had a really bad episode this week. He gets told by Kendall that Kendall's probably going to burn him, which this is kind of one of those between the lines kind of things. This was an open threat. You step down, or I'm going to feed you to the wolves. I mean, step down. You step away from Logan's side, from the joint defense, and you join me, or I throw you under the bus. It was very, very clearly a threat without actually being a threat at all. But he walks from that, and he goes to meet with his grandfather, and this is a great scene in this episode. Ewan kind of lays into him over abandoning his lawyer to side with Logan, who we already know Ewan thinks is a piece of shit, and his whole business and everything he's done to attain his wealth is less than admirable. And he tells him, I'm giving all my money to Greenpeace. And Greg is just blown, because we know Greg's been kind of like angling for some sort of footing within this company. He pressed Logan, he pressed Kendall a little bit. Like, he's really trying to gain something on his own. And to have that kind of pulled out from him, his safety net, like, now Greg's gonna have to assert himself more. And he says something like, I want you to I can't remember what he said. It's something like, I want you to take yourself more seriously, kid, or something like that. He's going to have to now. He doesn't have a choice. So I'm real interested to see what's going to happen with Greg, because I feel like Greg's now got to turn a corner. He doesn't have the money to lie back on. He's now kind of, he hasn't committed one way or another, it seems like, but he's played all angles. And when you play all angles, you're kind of also stabbing everyone in the back. So he's kind of, he could be potentially burning bridges with Kendall. He could be burning bridges with Logan. He's already burnt bridges with his grandfather. So, like, Greg's in really bad shape here. But, I still hold on to the fact that I feel like Greg is somehow going to come out on top out of all this. Like, when it's all said and done and Succession is over, somehow Greg is going to be king shit. I don't know how, but that's just how I feel. I really like the awkward conversation on the phone between Roman and the president. And this is a dynamic in this episode that I found really interesting as well, is the idea of how the media can essentially just make shit up, and now that becomes the public narrative. That becomes fact because we rely on the media to give us facts. And they essentially make up this story to get back at the president for not supporting them, that he's having these mental issues. And it's reported on the news. And you look at it as like, okay, they're reporting this on the news, whatever. But I look at that as, how would I relate this to real life, right? If CNN ran some story about Joe Biden's mental health deteriorating, we would all fucking buy it. It's totally believable, and we would all completely fucking buy it. And because it's CNN, we trust CNN, the worldwide leader in news, right? But it doesn't matter. I said CNN. It could be CNN, MSNBC, Fox News. It could be anybody. We'd fucking buy it. And the idea that some media conglomerate, some Logan Roy at CNN or any of these other news networks can be like, yeah, I'm just going to make some shit up to put some pressure on the president and put that out there. we would all buy it. And that's kind of scary to think that one person, a regular person, not someone actually in politics, not someone who is even familiar with the president's condition, really, could make some shit up, get the news to report it, and the country will buy it. And and that's what happened in this episode. Essentially, the country must have bought it because now he can't run again because he doesn't want to put his family through the whole circus of having to deal with his mental health. And I that's interesting within the context of the show, but frightening within within the context of real life. Because you got to look at now. I'm gonna look at everything with like a grain of salt, right? Like like is this real, or is some person who has a vendetta against the president who is in charge of some media conglomerate just saying, yeah, I'm gonna fuck with him, so I'm just gonna bake up some shit and put it out. Like that's crazy. But back to the conversation. I like the conversation with the president and Roman, where the president lays out that he's not going to run again. Everyone's like devastated except Connor, who's like totally turned up. Like, yeah, I'll talk to the bitch. Put him on the phone. And, Roman tries his best to kind of like save face here, but you can tell it's not going well. And he's struggling to be respectful. And it's just a really weird, tense scene where it's kind of like Roman's bringing Roman shit to the conversation, but you can really tell it's not working, and that them losing the president on their side altogether could be a huge hit for them. And I feel like this is going to play out throughout the rest of the season. We're only halfway through. And the preview for next week talks about picking the next president. So it's going to be real interesting to see what's going to happen here if they end up putting, if they being the showrunners, end up putting a president in place who is vehemently opposed to all things Logan Roy and the Roy family, who doesn't take any of their shit, who doesn't help them at all, and now they're at odds with the president. I feel like that could be a really interesting angle for the show to take. The last thing that I thought was interesting, I think, in this episode was the very ending. Who was it? Carl goes up there, he announces this deal, says that, they've reached this deal, everybody's happy, like, we can get out of this boring ass meeting. I wondered how long this meeting had gone on. Like, for us, it was an hour-long episode, but this could have played out over the course of 20 minutes. Or it could have played out over the course of 5 hours. Like, I have no idea. But they're excited to get out of there. And then you see Kendall walking up in the background. And I know everybody was like, oh my God, what the fuck's going to happen right here? And Kendall goes up and does this weird kind of like tribute to the women who were assaulted throughout the whole cruises scandal or whatever. And I don't know what Kendall's end game was there, but because of that, it sets up a scene where, who was it? What's her name? Carrie? Yeah, Carrie comes along, and she tells Kendall to hold back. Logan wants to meet with him, and that she has a room for him to hang out in. And he goes and sits in the room. You can tell he's clearly nervous. He's clearly trying to internally hype himself up. And Logan leaves and never meets with him. And it's just, to me, and this is my interpretation of this was sheerly a power play to show Kendall that Logan still has control over him, and that he didn't take too kindly to the whole thing of what happened on the stage. So I thought that was a really, really interesting scene. I'm curious to know what you guys think. How did you interpret Logan's decision? Like, what was Logan doing that for? Was it really just like honestly, I'm just gonna be real, was it really like a dick measuring contest right there? Like, to see who's the most who's the most gangster? Like I'm gonna show you I could still lord over you, and there's nothing you can do about it. So I'm going to wrap up with a couple of thoughts. And then I actually have I don't want to call it a prediction, but something of a open question based on the preview for next week. So I already talked about this first note, the idea of how the media can influence politics. My second thought was, I hate that Kendall's ringtone is the same thing that I use for my alarm. Because I set my alarm to be something that will jostle me awake. That it's like I can't sleep through it because I find the sound to be so obnoxious that I'll have no choice but to wake up. And that's Kendall's ringtone. Like, I wonder if anyone else uses that ringtone for anything else. I thought Roman was really funny in this episode. He had a lot of great moments. I didn't write them all down, but you guys watched it. It was a really good episode for Roman as far as laughs go. did Kendall get that rabbit killed? Because Kendall's a fucking idiot, man. Like, just don't give the rabbit the bagel. He's like, oh, I'm sure it's not a big deal. Give him the bagel. And then if he's a doctor for people, he can do rabbits too. Like, okay, Jesus Christ, Kendall. And then the last thing is, so during the preview for next week, they talk about picking the president. And there's a brief scene of Cotter saying I vote for myself to do it, all this good stuff, right? But then there's a moment where we see Sanaa Lathan again, and I forget her name, Lisa something, but the lawyer that was supposed to be the lawyer that Logan wanted that Kendall ended up getting, and she says something like, "Do you have any other, like, I can't remember the way it was phrased, but it was something to the effect of like, do you have any other legal dirt or something like that could be on Logan?" And then it cuts to a different scene. And you see Kendall sitting at a table looking thoughtful, like he's trying to decide what to say. And then the voice, whoever it is that's talking to him, says, like presses him a little bit further. Can you answer the question, sir? Something like that. It makes me wonder if Kendall's going to find a way, or at least make an attempt, to use the fact that Logan covered up what happened to that, what was his, like, was he like a waiter or something at that party? The one that Kendall... ultimately, did Kendall get him killed, or was Kendall just there? But whatever the case may be, that death that Logan helped cover up for Kendall, is Kendall going to try to find a way to use that against Logan without implicating himself? Because I just, the two things combined of Sanaa Lathan's character asking him if he had any other legal, like any other kind of like dirt or legal issues that he could bring up, combined with him sitting at a table looking contemplative, being told to answer the question. It just, I don't know. It just made me wonder. I want to throw that out there just in case it ends up being right. Just want to throw it out there. Is that possibly what he might try to do? I don't know how he can do that without implicating himself, but the writers have made far more difficult things look feasible. So that's all I got for this week. Let me know what you thought in the comments. I'm going to try to get caught up responding to the comments as I was down for the count for a couple of days. But let me know what you thought. Let me know what you think might happen with the president and all that good stuff. Let me know what you think Logan's goal was in making Kendall go to that room and just sit there for no reason. Was it just to be able to block his number? But he should already have his number. So, like, I don't know. But until then, I'll see you guys next week. Peace.